Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, baseball team. Tonight, the invocation will be given by a good friend of mine, Mark Savalti, from the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, and with him is our fairly new, right, Bishop? That would be Nick Oliver. Thank you, Mark, for coming.
Our dear Father in heaven, we thank Thee for the many wonderful blessings that we enjoy in this area of the world. We are grateful for this little town that we are a part of, for the sense of community and love and fellowship that we feel here. We pray that Thou would bless us to be able to strengthen one another, to lift one another, to support each other. We pray that Thou would help us to always recognize those that are in need and to reach out to them. We pray for our leaders, for those here on this town council, that they will be given the wisdom that they need to help us to grow in a good manner, in a manner that would be appropriate and helpful to all of those in the community. We pray also for this great nation of ours, that it will be strong and that we'll be able to support each other as we work through the difficulties and the contentions that might arise. We pray for our families and ask Thee to strengthen them. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. Number 4, adjustment approval of the August 20th, 2019 meeting agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to adopt the August 20th, 2019 meeting agenda with the following changes: add the Norris Holland Hair House bid as unfinished business.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. At this point in time, we'll open the public comment period and ask for Garrett Rezick. You'd signed up? Talked to you a little bit ago? Come on down. Again, just mention your name and address for us, please.
Garrett Radzik, 101 Cicada Place, here in Holly Springs. To tell you already, good evening. My name is Garrett Radzik. I'm a resident of Holly Springs. First, I'd like to thank each one of you and all the staff in the room for your service to this community. Thank you. Today, I'm here to talk about the South Wake landfill, and more importantly, clean air for the people of Holly Springs. Yesterday, I addressed the Wake County Board of Commissioners on the same matter. Given the limited time I have here, I won't go into the history of how the landfill got here, given that there are many in this room who not only know the history, but have actually lived it. So fast forwarding to today, where do we find ourselves? The landfill isn't going away. It's currently 1/3 full, expected to reach 500 feet tall, and will reach full capacity around the year 2043. Around 150 trucks tip waste at the landfill each day. That's over 4,000 per month. Depending on the month, in 2019, we see averages ranging from 1.5 to 4.5 odor complaints per day. Odor mitigation strategies have largely involved installing more well pumps to capture gas, automated wellheads to respond to changes in weather conditions, and a forthcoming app to allow community members to better report odors. A North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Air report from 2018 showed the areas surrounding the landfill to be in the 81st percentile when it comes to particulate matter. This is in comparison to other tested sites. So looking ahead now as to what is to be done. A little over 3 weeks ago, I started a petition with the hopes of doing my small part to improve the quality of the air and therefore the quality of life for the Holly Springs community. This petition now has around 147 signatures, 118 from Holly Springs residents. It has specific requests for both the town of Holly Springs as well as the county. Having already addressed the county yesterday, I'll focus on our town-related requests tonight. 1, our community should feel confident about the quality of the air we are breathing. Concerns about hydrogen sulfide, particulate matter, and pollution from diesel trucks headed to the landfill are real. In an effort to gather more data, the town of Holly Springs should purchase and install cheap air quality sensors in those communities closest and install them in those communities closest to the landfill. The frequent testing of air quality will provide us with more data to actually advocate for change. 2, when given the opportunity to do so, the town of Holly Springs should refrain from zoning land as residential if it is in close proximity to the landfill, in accordance with initial recommendations from engineers. 3, the town of Holly Springs should preserve and replace adequate tree buffers in partnership with the South Wake Landfill Street Planting Program. And with that, I'd like to leave you all with a handful of the comments from residents who signed the petition. First, I've had cancer before and I'm concerned about getting it again because of the air I breathe. My family may have moved to Oak Hall after the landfill was already in operation, but that shouldn't take away our rights for continual clean air in Holly Springs. I can smell the landfill from my house at least once every week. Something has to be done to make this better. The smell of the landfill devalues the real estate in our town. And lastly, I'm repulsed when outside and smell the garbage in the air. It is repulsive when I'm running and trying to get healthier and smell it knowing those odors are hurting my health and others' health in Holly Springs. So with that, I look forward to continuing this conversation next week when the director of the South Wake landfill will be coming to the council chambers. Thanks again for your continued service to the community and for this opportunity to voice my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. At this point in time, we'll close public hearing, and we have a rather interesting couple items on the agenda tonight. Agenda item 6A is the recognition of the 10U All-Star Baseball Team. We've been very quiet the last, thank you very much. And I'm going to introduce Chris Champion, Parks and Recreation, again, for a very similar message, but I'm not going to say it because he wants to and he should. Hi, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Chris Champion. I am the Athletic Program Supervisor for the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm very proud to be here tonight to recognize an exceptional group of young men, our 2019 10U Baseball All-Star Team. This team competed in and won the recent SWAC Baseball State Championship Tournament. Let's give them a big round of applause. The SWAC tournaments are comprised of other Parks and Recreation All-Star teams from across the state of North Carolina. In addition to recognizing the players, our department would also like to thank the coaches and parents for their dedication to not only their kids, but also the Town of Holly Springs baseball program. I will now turn it over to Coach Chris Sousa to recognize his players individually.
Usually I'm a Parks and Recreation professional in Orange County, and usually I spend the time coming up here pleading for additional funding and for not cutting funding from y'all, so this is kind of a different environment for me, so kind of what I'm cherishing right now. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for inviting us to your meeting to celebrate the accomplishment of 14 extraordinary young men. These 14 young men came together over the course of 4 weeks to achieve one common goal. In many circumstances, all-star teams fail because players believe that their individual needs far outweigh those of the team. From day one, these 14 young men sacrificed for the collective good of the team, and in that understood that the sum of all the parts was more important than the one. I've been coaching young men at many different levels for over 20 years. And it was evident after this first practice that this was a special group. They were special not only because of their athletic ability, but because their passion for the sport, their compassion for each other, and their understanding that the name on the front of their shirt was more important than the name on the back. Regardless of our success, I was most proud of them for the way they represented the town of Holly Springs, the Holly Springs Parks and Recreation Department, the U10 All-Star team, and themselves during this 4-week venture. I believe that these 14 boys achieved something that will keep them great friends for many years to come. I would like to say a special thanks to Steve Johnson and to Christopher Champion. You would only need to spend one day with them to recognize their passion and dedication they have for serving the town of Holly Springs. Lastly, I would like to recognize 5 of the greatest volunteers I've had the pleasure of coaching with. Coach Dave, Coach Mark, Coach Scott, Coach Rob, and Coach Trent. Having 5 crew members all rowing in the same direction made captaining this ship one of my most enjoyable experiences and one that I hope I can cherish for my lifetime. Thank you, guys. Mr. Caden Miner. Mr. Luke Nahalia. Mr. Will Richardson. Mr. Mac Barfield. Mr. Caden Yount. Mr. Tyler Valley. Mr. Connor Souza. Mr. Andrew Kimmel. Mr. Matthew Marrero. Mr. Connor Hurahan. Mr. Tyler Goebel. Mr. Noah Kindleberger. Mr. Jacob McMillan. And last but not least, Mr. Aiden McKenna.
Now, it's traditional that we take pictures because the parents have been doing that all afternoon anyway. So what we're going to do is, if the guys will kind of get closer together and the coaches come up and the parents bring their cameras in the aisle, and we will take pictures and congrats them for being the champions again. Who's got the New York Times camera? Well, that was camera. Where are you guys? Alberto?
Are you going back out there?
No, thank you.
No idea. I'm really wondering why we're.
Oh, there. I didn't see you. All right.
Only reason I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great if we do it for everybody.
I don't do that.
Invite him to coffee.
Thank you. We'll wait for just a minute.
We just paid for a study not long ago. Yeah. Jeff's working on it.
What's going to happen now is something kind of dear to my heart personally, and I'll tell you more about it later. But I've asked Alberto, and he's told me how to speak his last name, Quiroga. Is that good enough? Close enough? All right. Family is here, but Alberto was a intern here for about 3 years, Matter of fact, he helped me clean my office for a few days, which I really still appreciate. We've kept in touch since then. He's now in college, and was in college, and he's now got a big paying job. So he's got to get back to Winston-Salem tonight, so we won't talk too long. But this is something that has been on my mind for a long time. I talked to his mom probably 3 or 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years, and they have been working to get citizenship in this country. And before I go any further, I'll let Alberto talk about it. Alberto, you're on.
Hi, everyone. I thank all you guys for having me here today and everyone here hearing me. So, Alberto, a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. As the mayor said, I used to work here. Longtime resident of Holly Springs as well. Not anymore, unfortunately. I have a job now in Winston-Salem, so that's why I arrived a little bit late. Who knew there was traffic in Holly Springs? I'm not used to that. I remember the days when there was no traffic in Holly Springs.
Weren't going to say that, remember?
But, so a quick backstory about my family. Over there are my parents. Sit down with my brother right there in the back. We have a very interesting history in our family. My parents are both from Mexico, and my whole entire family is actually from Mexico. I was the first American citizen in my family. My parents used to live here under work visas. But unfortunately, when in the aftermath of 9/11, we had to move back to Mexico. And in 2002 is when we moved there. And for the time being, Mexico was, a relatively safe area. The crime rate of what would you say would be Raleigh, just avoid the bad areas. But unfortunately, when 2005, 2006 hit, things started getting a little bit more on the riskier side. You started seeing more of the cartel getting involved with the people, getting involved with the public, and it really started becoming more of a dangerous scene, as they would say, in the city of Monterey. And my parents didn't want that lifestyle for me. My oldest brother over there in the yellow shirt, he stayed over here on a student visa, finished off college, and then got a great job here in the RTP area. And in 2008, he said, hey, how about Alberto comes and lives over here with me? He really knew my passion for this country, my passion for wanting to grow up over here, earn an education over here, and be able to grow up and maybe one day be the mayor of Holly Springs. Who knows? I'm just kidding.
He's out after me. I knew that.
And it was a very difficult decision. As many in the crowd, I would assume our parents, leaving your 11-year-old child to go somewhere else, it's tough. But they knew it was for the best. They knew it was for something for a better future for their child. And so I moved over here just with my oldest brother. And for anyone who has siblings, you can imagine what it is to live with just a sibling and not mom and dad stopping any of the arguments that are happening. But it was a great time, and with that great time came a lot of adversity. Unfortunately, I missed a lot of mom and dad teaching me the things physically there, learning how to shave, learning how to drive, going on my first date. Maybe that was a good thing they weren't there. But a lot of those things, and my oldest brother Roy took over that role to really teach me how to become the man I am today, thanks to him and thanks to the guidance of my parents. So for 17 years, 9 months and a day, or it was 17 years, a month, something like that. Since 2002, I can't do math right now. I do math all day long. But it was since June of 2002, we've been waiting for that citizenship date for my parents to apply back to the country. Thankfully, when you're an American citizen and you're 21, guess what? You get to ask for direct family to move to the U.S. So when I turned 21, unlike most people what they do on their 21st birthday, I was in a lawyer's office signing papers. So I was able to submit those papers to be able to ask permission to the United States government to have my family come over here. And after 2 very long, tedious years of paperwork and a lot of waiting, the final notice came in that they got accepted. And August 3rd, 2019, they were finally able to come to RDU, which you see that picture right there. And we finally had them officially move to the United States and officially move to the Holly Springs area. And when, the mayor has known me since
You're 12.
Since I was 12, yeah, when I was still taller than him. And he's been a great friend of the family. He's been such a huge support in so many different ways. And when I told him my parents were finally coming over here, he, jumped in joy over the phone when I told him that. And so we're just so thankful that the town has welcomed us so kindly, that everyone here has been awesome through this journey of ours. And I'm very excited to see forth my parents growing their lives in this beautiful town that you guys have made possible for them. So thank you.
And before we go any further, I'd like to have the family come forward, please. All of you. I think your brother's bigger than you are, isn't he?
I'm sorry?
Your brother's bigger than you are?
I'm taller, and that's a fact.
Are you taller? Okay. Anyway, I wanted everybody to see, in this country, I think everybody hears about what's going on at the border and all the bad things and this and that. Here's a family that worked for 17 years, working with the law, I guess is the right way to put it, to get here, and now they're here. I already know that somebody at Wake Tech is interested in talking to you, and maybe somebody from Pine Springs is interested in talking to you. We don't know yet, but we're thinking about it.
Quick notice, my dad's an engineer. He wants to start teaching as a professor, and my mom's an English teacher. So.
And they're both wonderful people. So anyway, all I have to offer is a letter of welcoming, and I wanted you, if you guys want to say anything, you could. If you don't want to say anything, that's okay too, because Alberto did a good job. Does Mama want to say hi? I knew she would.
Well, I just want to let you know that I'm so excited that finally we are here with Alberto and Roy Jr., and I have no words.
That's fine.
It's a mixed emotions, you know.
Did you really? Congratulations.
We did. Yeah.
Temporary. All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to give you this letter. I'm not going to read it because it's personal, okay? But it's kind of nice. And Alberto, thank you for coming, and you got to get back to Winston-Salem, right?
I do have to get back to Winston.
All right.
I still have work tomorrow.
All right, well, thank you again. Let's
Thank
give
you,
them
guys.
applause.
Appreciate it.
Are you sure he's taller? Are you taller than he is?
Thank you, guys.
See y'all later. Good night now.
You. Safe travels.
Agenda item 7A, we're going to talk about the National Guard in North Carolina. And there's a gentleman that's been there for a while. I've had the pleasure of being with him a couple times. Matter of fact, I was a very big champion of you when we got a new governor, I think you know that story. So I'd like to introduce General Lusk, who's the head of the National Guard, a good friend, and he's going to give us a little bit of information on what the National Guard does, because I'm not sure everybody knows, including me, all the things that they do. And with him is Captain Daly. So General, Captain, both, each, or whatever, come on down. Good seeing you again. You haven't changed a bit.
Thank you. And Mayor and council members, thank you so much for just the honor to be here with you today, and to the town and community of Holly Springs, a heartfelt thank you to you, because you hire and you employ a lot of our guardsmen, as well as more importantly, you provide the community that they grow up in, and therefore we get to share some great human talent. And I'm just going to speak for a few moments. I'm going to start out by just kind of using our Guard of North Carolina National Guard logo, just to kind of bring it home. So the National Guard is a very constitutionally unique military force, and a lot of people perhaps overlook this very aspect when they think about our military. They think about all the warfighting functions that go on, you know, and good Lord, we've been in that since 9/11/2001 in some place around the world. But the National Guard, aside from being part of the Federal Reserves, we're also one of the very unique military forces that are shared with our states and our territories, and therefore we have on a daily basis, as our commanders-in-chief, our respective governors of each one. Now, there are a total of 54 National Guards. You know, all 50 states, then we have Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Washington, D.C., all of which have their own governors that serve as their commanders-in-chief. And that kind of brings me to the logo. If you'll look right here at that, first of all, the iconic Minuteman right there in the beginning. You know, if you think of the National Guard, we trace our heritage and our lineage all the way back to a time before our republic was ever founded. Back before the Declaration of Independence in 1776, but all the way back to the Massachusetts Bay Colonies, nearly 384 years ago. And right here in North Carolina, as you can see at the bottom of 1663, is when the Carolina Charter first gave us the authorization as the peoples of the Carolina, the ability to muster and levy men for the common defense of the people of the Carolinas. And that's where it all started. And again, so behind that Minuteman, that person that fired that shot heard around the world at the Greens in Concord and Lexington, the bridge, you'll also see our great state of North Carolina. Again, it's a constant reminder that when we're not on federal duty somewhere in the world, that we indeed are working for our state. You know, and it's our state that probably brings out the biggest pride whenever we get called upon to do duty around our state, whether it be a hurricane, a flood, we've had a couple tornadoes, and of course we've had our rash of winter storms of late too that's brought them on. And I can tell you, I've been with these folks overseas on several deployments. I've seen the absolute tremendous work they do, but they sure do go at it a whole lot more with purpose and pride, knowing that they're doing it for the benefit of their fellow North Carolinians or their citizens of the towns and the communities that they live in. Okay. Now around the top of it, you see the North Carolina National Guard, but always ready, ready team. So the National Guard national motto is always ready and always there. And again, it goes back to saying always, even since before the founding of our nation, the National Guard has been there, and albeit in the form of the militia back in the days. Okay. But we make it, we take it one step further, and we kind of take that last part and say we're a ready team. We have 12,000 North Carolina National Guardsmen in our state from every zip code, in our state. We have nearly 10,000 Army National Guard, and we got another 1,700 Air National Guard. And that Air National Guard over primarily in the western part of the state, Charlotte and Stanley County primarily. They fly the C-17 strategic airlift jets. They're actually transitioning that, but they're literally flying around the world on a daily basis right now, delivering supplies to those troops and those service members that are deployed abroad. As well as they also have other engineering and communications capabilities in Stanley County. They call it the geographically separated unit, so they're not really part of the flying wing itself, but that's where they reside. Again, a tremendous group of professionals that are there. And in the Army National Guard, we have 6 major subordinate commands. We call them brigade commands. Our largest is our 30th Armored Brigade combat teams, and they're indeed outfitted with the M1 Abrams tanks and the M2 Bradley fighting vehicles, all the heavy metal hardware that the Army could provide, from artillery pieces, you name it. And they have just undergone and just concluded a 2-year, very arduous training cycle that started really last year in earnest at Fort Bliss, Texas. So while most of us are going to the beach or the mountains in the summertime, they're choosing great places like Fort Bliss, Texas, and the Mojave Desert of California is where they spend their summers. And they actually spent this last summer at their culminating training event at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California, where they really fought a very grueling battle with a very professional opposing forces out there that's designed to be even tougher than what we can all imagine the most rigorous combat against a near-peer competitor in the world might be. And these ladies and gentlemen, now, as I told Governor Cooper just the other day, I said not only can they add that they are hurricane, flood, winter storm survivors, but now they're earthquake survivors. They happen to be out there when all those, earthquakes were hitting California just a few, relatively few short weeks ago, over a month ago. We've just concluded the final deployment ceremony for one of the units there, and all of them will be reporting to Fort Bliss, Texas here in the next couple days. And they will eventually deploy around the beginning of October, and they will go over to the Central Command Area of Responsibility, also known as the Middle East. So as I told them before they, at their deployment ceremonies, I said for the first time in 3 deployments that this brigade, as an entire brigade of almost 5,000 people, as they move forward, for the first time, they're not actually going into a combat zone. So they're not going to war. They're going to a place in order to prevent or deter war. We all know the tensions that are in the area. We hear it every single day from Iran and other maligned interest groups that are in the area, from terrorist groups to other nation-state actors. But what a lot of people lose sight of is, the influence of the Chinas and the Russians and things like that that are somewhat adversarial to our national interests at times. And of course, folks like that continue to stir the muck, if you will. So the fact that they're there, they're going to be on the front line, and their success when they come back will be that they have come back and perhaps not a single shot has ever been fired in anger, and indeed they'll have maintained the peace while in the Middle East. So they'll be gone, and these citizen soldiers in this group will be gone for almost a year. We have other brigades. We have a sustainment brigade that's headquartered in Greensboro, North Carolina, and again, it's another 4,000 folks primarily. Just as the name implies, sustainers, logistical experts. I mean, they can make things move around the world, and they were actually instrumental in taking that entire brigade to Fort Irwin and back and getting them ready to load out and head to the Middle East. We have what we call a maneuver enhancement brigade over in Charlotte. Again, another couple thousand strong right there, and mostly military police and engineers of all types, combat engineers that do demolitions, obstacle reduction to those that do road construction and airfield construction, as well as build buildings, plumbers, electricians, et cetera, et cetera. We have an academy at Fort Bragg, and that's where we do an awful lot of training, perhaps most known for its Officer Candidate School, but they also do artillery school training there for not only National Guard, but for the active Army there at Fort Bragg. So an awful lot of soldiers from around the country will come there in order to really hone their skills and become quite proficient in their artillery tasks there at Fort Bragg. We have a troop command that's kind of our catch-all, if you will, and inside that catch-all brigade troop command, we have two special forces Green Beret companies, one that's up in Rocky Mount and one over in Albemarle in the western part of the state, as well as they have a whole host of everything from our military band, our history detachments, you name it. That's where those folks that don't really have a higher headquarters, we put them there so that they do have a mom and dad, if you will, to overlook them. And it's important for me to just to point out the simple fact that all these citizen soldiers and these citizen airmen that we comprise of the National Guard, the North Carolina National Guard, 80% of them are what we call the traditional, perhaps more famously known as weekend warriors, right? That's the way it used to be. And these traditional guardsmen, as you know, they live amongst us. You know, they live in our neighborhoods, and they hold every job under the sun. Some are teachers. Some work right here for the town of Holly Springs. Zachary Pitts, for example, who is deployed 4 times, you know, with the National Guard, with us. And in all walks of life, professions, like I said, from lawyers to doctors, you name it, they're there. And they come to duty selflessly, you know, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, although that's the minimum these days. It's ever since 9/11. But they work very arduously and very dedicated in their task. And the important thing I want to share with you is that wouldn't be possible without your support. Okay? And they're absolutely great leaders. They're great workers. They're committed to seeing the bigger picture and making things happen and achieving goals perhaps that an organization sets out. And you know, we train them in an awful lot of leadership tasks, and we kind of hone that skill. That's our forte. And I think that we offer a great partnership for any company or organization out there that could benefit from that. While they may train them in the expertise of their actual jobs, we can bring in somebody that's capable of not only doing that job but leading others and teaching them how to do that job as well. And I think I'm going to try to figure this out real fast. I'm going to just close real quick with a quick video, and I don't know what the format is here, but if at the end of the video, if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take those for just a few moments. But I know you told me 40 minutes. Serious, but
Well, you told me an hour, and I said, how about 40 minutes?
yeah. And of course, I would realize when I'm looking at the agenda, I would have loved to have been before the baseball team, because you promised me some recruits tonight, and I saw 14 of them that I would love to have that have already learned the value of teamwork.
Maybe next time.
Next time. Couple years, we need a lot of parents signing now that they've all gone. So this is just a quick summary of last year, of 2018. I'll let this play for about 4.5 minutes or so. We've had over 22,000 National Guardsmen that have deployed around the world since 9/11. So as you can imagine, with a force of 12,000, many have gone multiple times.
To anyone still unwilling to take this more seriously, let me be clear. You need to get yourself to a safe place now.
For the 30th Armored Brigade Combat Team.
How extremely grateful I am for your service, and how extremely grateful and proud I am just to serve with each and every one of you. To selflessly serve, to take care of our fellow citizens, to take care of our families and our neighbors. God bless each and every one of you. Always ready team. There were like three things that just reminded me, if I could hit them real briefly, and I promise I'll get you back on timeline, Mr. Mayor. We talked about SPP, or State Partnership Program. We actually are partnering with 2 different countries around the world, so we're, I don't know what's getting ready to happen next. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and I can't do 2 things at one time, can I?
You got a techie behind you if you need it.
Yeah, they got it. Okay, our State Partnership Program, this is something that started back at the end of the Cold War, trying to partner different states for those former Warsaw Pact countries, trying to, I guess, kind of cut their wings or grow their wings when it comes to establishing democracy. And we teamed up with the Republic of Moldova, which is a next door neighbor of Ukraine right now. And we've been there for like 20 some odd years, and it is a flourishing relationship where so many people from across the state of all walks of life outside of the National Guard are involved. We have relationships that go there. Even if I were to pull the plug and say we're going to stop going there, that relationship with Moldova would continue. We have similar arrangements with the country of Botswana, the very southern part of Africa, one country up from South Africa, right on the tip of the continent. And again, a very respected organization there, one that we're working with for about the last 10 years, and we're trying to get that to the same level of the Moldova relationship. Just came back last month, as a matter of fact, took an entire delegation from North Carolina government with us in order to create the starting points, if you will, for those long-term relationships. And so we're involved in those international relationships day in and day out. Military funeral honors was something I want to mention. So across the state, of course, we have one of the largest veterans populations in the country. And as a result, unfortunately, we have a lot of them that pass away on an annual basis. And we typically, our military funerals honors from the North Carolina National Guard will typically handle 4,000 different military funerals throughout the year, which is quite a few, sometimes multiple a day. They tend to come in droves for some reason. Okay, so that was going on. Tar Heel Challenge was the last thing I want to talk about. It is a program challenge with a capital N and a capital G in the middle of it from National Guard. It's a project that started again a couple decades ago, really addressing the at-risk youth, somebody that's age 16, below the age of 18, as long as they have no felonies on their record. And if they drop out of school or leave school, then they have a second chance. They'll take them there for almost 5 months, run through a military-style training regiment, if you will. They're not military and they're free to leave. It's a volunteer day in and day out basis, but they start out in the morning with doing physical training, exercises, then they'll go through classes, do community service outreach, things like that. They'll learn valuable life skills from being able to manage their personal finances to you name it, setting goals, how to stay away from those folks that may take them back to their former life, if you will, before they came into the program. And it has met across the nation with such tremendous success. We have such a very low recidivism rate with that, very high recidivism. Whatever. Most people don't go back to where they were, all right, back on the street corner. Okay. So we had one in Salemburg that's been going on for a while, and we had the opportunity to open up a second academy in the middle part of the state again in New London. Hopefully we'll expand to the further west of our state. So we graduate about 500 of these cadets a year, which we know just scratches the surface of what the needs are. But so that's your National Guard is involved in an awful lot of things that perhaps are not in the headlines, and again, because we have so many part-time soldiers and airmen, that it's not a day in and day out thing. Of course, we're competing with Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune and all those other things, so we get buried an awful lot of times, but we're very proud of what we do. And it's a great value to our taxpayers when you get this type of performance and this type of output for a relatively penny on the dollar. I mean, we're less than 10% of our respective service budgets go into the National Guard. Mr. Mayor, you're right. We met for the first time on an employee support of the Guard and Reserve boss lift as we went down to Fort Hood, Texas, quite a few years ago.
Fort Hood, yep. Do I remember it well?
Mm-hmm. And we came close to having another one this year. But the employee support of the Guard is so very, very important for us. Like I said, our folks won't stay in our formations unless they have long-term viable careers, and the opportunity to continue to excel and to grow in their career paths. So without folks like you, it wouldn't be possible to man an organization that has this type of a mission.
Let me make a quick comment about
Yes,
that
sir.
trip. It happened about, was it 10 years ago? It goes fast.
It's been something
Pretty
like
close.
that, yes, sir.
Anyways, Fort Hood, Texas. We flew down in a plane that goes about 12 miles an hour, but it gets you there. I won't get into details. But here's what I want to say. We got down there, and the next day, a lot of those troops were being on their way to Iraq, when this was not a pretty scene at that point in time. And I had to ask, I said, what do you guys think about, guys and gals, of course, what do you think about having to go to Iraq tomorrow? Not a one of them complained, and they all said the same thing, sir, we're here to serve. That's all they said. That impressed me a whole lot, especially going to a country like Iraq at that point in time. So these people are just incredible. That's kind of why you're here tonight, the captain's here tonight. We honor your service. I know you hear that all the time. We appreciate your service, but we do.
Thank you very much, sir. May I just give you one quick thing real fast? Come on up real fast. Get out of here.
Not a problem.
This right here is going to give you, again, just in recognition of our long-term partnership. We have an awful lot of you folks come to the camp.
Yes, sir.
Every year that you have been so to the
town of Holly Springs. In recognition of your contributions and continued support of North Carolina National Guard and our partnership.
You may, sir. Thank you very much. Let's give both of them. Again, thank you for coming.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
If I could add one comment. We do have one staff member who was recently deployed, Brittany Cushine, one of our firefighters, and I think she deployed about a month
Oh, yeah.
or two ago. I think that's the only employee that I know of right now, but we are real proud of her and her service. And our police chief, or fire chief is as well. Sorry.
You should never said police chief.
So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Brittany Cushine.
Brittany Cushine.
And I think people need to know, I mean, we don't see guys running around or women running around in uniform, but we do have quite a few here in Holly Springs. About 2 years ago, we had a father and son team that deployed. You might know the DiAgostinos. And, you know, we're gone for a year. And you do see them often in the grocery store, but we're just very lucky to have these great people.
Yep.
As you said, thank you. Thank you.
Safe return. All right, agenda item 8A, public hearing, Unified Development Ordinance, text amendment 19-UDO-02, self-storage mini warehouse uses. Sean, no it isn't. It's Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
I had Sean Ryan here, so
I
know better than that.
I am standing in for Sean this evening, although he did lead up the work and research and background, so I get to do the easy part of the presentation. Right. So you're correct on that. So the purpose of this evening is a discussion of town-generated text amendments or requested amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance for self-storage, otherwise known as mini storage. So we'll ask you to conduct a public hearing and to have a motion to adopt the ordinance, to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, adopting the text amendment 19-UDO-02. This amendment is the result of about 1.5 to 2 years of off and on discussions through staff. There was a number of potential applicants or members of the development community who were initiating discussions and requests for self-storage facilities throughout town. We have the existing zoning district requirements would locate these types of facilities in our business park areas. These self-storage facilities are a little bit different than most of the businesses that we are trying to attract into our business park. And we understand that those areas are limited and are an important resource for the town in terms of the jobs that they bring and the economic development opportunities. As a result, staff went through, as I mentioned, an extensive research looking both locally in the region as well as throughout the country at other municipalities, regulations for both benchmarking as well as to see what types of regulations may be appropriate to either ensure that they would be a good fit within the town as well as to look at the types of zoning districts that may be appropriate. Our current UDO requirements have the mini storage uses as a special exception use in our BT. So again, the Business and Technology District is primarily located within our business park. We do allow outdoor storage as a portion of that site, and they would conform with just the industrial building architectural requirements, which would be less restrictive than, say, commercial district regulations. As a result of the research, discussions with staff from various departments, senior staff and administration throughout that time period, we've proposed some modifications that would relocate this use, removing it from the Business and Technology District, adding it as a use within our more intense IT or Industry and Technology District, which is the most intense industrial district. We would also propose new regulations for architectural and appearance, including the height and style, minimum separation to ensure that these facilities are not overly clustered in one particular area of town. prohibiting outdoor storage and some issues that may occur with that. And as well, given some insight from our Economic Development Department in terms of a need for dock height doors for businesses that would have loading and unloading of that type of need, that would be something required as well to make sure that these could be best utilized by a variety of businesses as well. This would be include some additional language that would protect existing facilities so that they would not become non-conforming. For instance, without having an exemption for mini storages that are already in site, they may not be able to have signage added or other things needed to conduct their business in a normal fashion. So we have recognized that we do have these facilities currently in our BT district, and we would not want to harm them from making a good go of it as a business. So on the map, you can see this is our current zoning map. We do have 2 areas of town currently zoned IT, which would support the changed location for mini storage or the self-storage. Of course, if someone were interested in locating elsewhere, other property could be rezoned to the IT district. That would, of course, come through council for any determination in rezoning. And with this, at the planning board hearing, there were a few items. We do have our planning board representative if you'd like to hear from them. In general, there was limited discussion, but there were a couple of points that they could bring up for you.
Sure.
Yes,
Nina Ryback,
please.
would you mind coming forward?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening there.
We did pass this unanimously in the end. There was one person obviously absent. The only concerns that were voiced, Board Member Crandall did state that he wasn't sure what it added in terms of employment and wanted to know why the IT industry and tech industry districts were chosen. You guys did a great job of explaining that to us, but he did say in the end that he kind of wanted to see our most valuable industrial property preserved for job creation type businesses. As I stated, it did end up passing unanimously, but that was the biggest concern from the planning board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments? Or Irina, are you, your name is on here. Yeah, if you, she handle it? Melissa, you've got it. Just check it. Is there any questions, comments, then we'll open public hearing? All right, at this point in time, we'll open and close public hearing. No one signed up. Any further discussion? Probably not.
No.
Motion?
Motion to adopt ordinance 19-07 to adopt a statement of compatibility and approve UDO text amendment 19-UDO-02 for self-storage, bracket mini warehouse uses.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. And Melissa, you're still on. Agenda item 8B, public hearing rezoning 19 REZ01, 5321 Sunset Lake Road / Yates Track rezoning. Again, Melissa Sigmund, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The request before you is a rezoning. The requested action this evening would be a public hearing to consider the conditional use rezoning with 2 motions, to accept a statement of compatibility and an ordinance to change the zoning of the property. The property is located south and east of the southeast corner of Holly Springs Road and Sunset Lake Road. It is immediately adjacent to the existing Sunset Lake Commons Shopping Center. As you can see, it is a small site, approximately just over an acre, 1.1 acres. The current zoning is residential, R10 residential, and the request is to transition to LB conditional use, so local business conditional use district. As you can see, this property does stand out a little bit right now as a remnant residential zoning within a sea of the local business designation for both the existing shopping center as well as some undeveloped property. There is no proposed development at this time, so you will not see any development plans or any conditions related to a specific development. The applicant can provide any additional detail you'd like, but it is a joint decision of purchase of the property. For future incorporation, it could be incorporated into future development plans compatible with that existing commercial center. This property is both located within a mixed-use designation on our comprehensive plan, as well as in more detail part of the Northeast Gateway Plan, which designates the site for office commercial. The proposed LB conditional use zoning district would be consistent with both the general mixed use as well as the more specific office commercial designation. Engineering is available to provide additional information. As noted, it may be somewhat general since there is not a particular development request for this site. If you'd like to hear
Questions or
any
comments?
details.
And Dana, there was no, it was 801 again? No comments, pretty much? I know the property, I go by it every, so do you. And it seems to be a natural fit for something besides a house, yeah. Any comments from the board at this point? If not, we do.
No, it fits. I mean,
It's just,
yeah,
it is.
It fits. My only question, if you go back to the diagram, is down at some point, easement-wise, we probably want to widen that area. So when is the discussion for the easement happening? Is this a good time?
In terms of right-of-way,
Right away? Yeah.
so engineering can speak to the existing improvements and what, if anything, is still needed.
Rachel? Engineering.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as Melissa mentioned, with this rezoning, there aren't any detailed development plans associated with this. So at the time of development, we would reassess the need for transportation improvements or if additional traffic impact analyses are required. And so with that, we would identify any additional turn lanes or signal improvements, additional right-of-way that might be needed for that.
So it's understood that that's inevitable, that we would need something in that area?
Yes.
More
and-
right away, right?
Correct. And condition number 2 that the applicant is offering kind of speaks to that dedication
Okay.
of rights-of-way and any improvements that are required. Not only from a TIA that may or may not occur, but per our comprehensive transportation plan as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will open a public hearing. I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Neil Gosh, am I correct on? Ghosh? Thank you, sir. Come on down, please. State your name and your address, and then your comments, please.
Good evening, Mayor Sears, Mayor Pro Tem O'Brien. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 421 Fayetteville Street in Raleigh. Thank you, Melissa, for your presentation. I think she pretty much covered it. This is essentially an opportunity for the proprietors of the Sunset Lake Common Shopping Center to acquire a piece of property. Obviously, the zoning is inconsistent with the rest of the shopping center. So this rezoning case essentially will make it consistent therewith. We've offered the 2 conditions basically to future-proof the development of this parcel for some of the concerns you mentioned, if there is additional right-of-way needed, and also with whatever fees would be associated with new development on this property. The property owner, Mr. George Jordan, is here if you have any questions, but other than that, it's pretty surface level rezoning. There's not much to it other than fixing the zoning map.
Any questions, the attorney? Probably not. I think we're good.
We're good.
Thank you.
I think we're all on the same
Thanks.
page. Thank you. At this point in time, I'll close the public hearing. Back to Melissa.
I will note that you will see the conditions that were provided by the applicant have been slightly tweaked since the time of planning board to ensure that the language is consistent with this development not occurring yet at this time. So the language has been slightly tweaked by engineering to ensure it's most accurate. So those minor changes have been shown and will be shown on the screen for the second potential motion.
Any further comments? You all know this property very well. All right, so let's go for two motions, please. One, let's tackle first.
I'll do it. Motion to accept the following as being true. The requested zone map change from R10 residential to LB local business conditional use is consistent with the vision of Holly Springs Comprehensive, since the future land use plan map indicates this property as mixed use, and the Northeast Gateway overlay indicates the property as office/commercial, and the LB local business district will support uses and development patterns consistent with these designations. In addition, the proposed zoning will allow for continuity and integration with existing adjacent development.
Second?
Motion been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 2. Wow. As written on the screen.
I can do that if you want.
Yeah, part of it.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 19-02 to change the zoning of 1.1 acres from R10 residential to LB CU local business conditional use with conditions offered by the applicant as listed below.
Second.
Motion been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, Ober. Good to see you. Agenda item 9A, consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 10A, cross connections ordinance update. Call out. I'm sorry, did I miss one?
Mr. Mayor, we added on a unfinished business item
Right.
for new business, and that was to discuss the bid that we received for the Norris Holland Hair House. I did receive the written bid, and the written bid was for $25,000 by Corey Reed. Mr. Reed's here. You can raise his hand if you'd like. Mr. Reed is stated to me that he would be rehabbing this home, and it's understood that we'll have to get into an agreement with the Capital Area Preservation Society to do a rehab agreement consistent with their goals and objectives, which would be to preserve the exterior character of the house. The way the statute works is if you're of a mind to receive the bid, we would then advertise the bid in the local paper, and the statute requires a 10-day upset bid period once that bid is published. So probably wouldn't get it in tomorrow's paper, probably get it in Thursday's paper.
Yeah.
So 10 days starting from Thursday, anybody can upset the bid by a 10% increase in bid from $25,000. And if 10 days goes by without town receiving an upset bid, then Mr. Reed and I and Capital Area Preservation would sit down and work out a rehabilitation agreement, which would require the house to be rehabbed, and if there's a failure of that agreement, there'd be a reversionary interest by the town, and in which case he'd get his money back, and we'd have to just go forward. So, the motion before you is to receive the bid, if you'd like to, or we could not receive it.
I think we've all been apprised of that. However, questions or comments of the attorney?
I had a quick question. So you say you'll sit down with Mr. Reed and the Capital Area Preservation, come up with a plan. If they cannot follow, is there an amount of time they have to renovate this house? Or if it's getting more expensive, what happens if they can't meet the criteria that?
Sure, we'd come up with some reasonable criteria. I believe when we talked with CAP folks, what was their time frame? Usually 18 months, something like that on a rehab agreement. I frankly, I don't remember, but it was a...
Yeah, I don't believe that they have a specific total time, but what they will work out with the individual is a timeline that both can agree to that shows progress. Once that agreement is in place and we transfer ownership of the property to the new owner, the town is out of that agreement. And so it's 100% between the owner and Capital Area Preservation. And the town no longer is party to that.
Okay, so what what happens if they renovate the house and then they go to sell it and those people want to completely redo it? Are they allowed to, or is this house stay?
It will be a condition, there will be a restrictive covenant to maintain the exterior in a certain way. So there's really two documents that we're working on, and one would be that rehabilitation contract, and the other would be a exterior facade covenant. So they wouldn't be able to destroy it, wouldn't be able to tear it down, would have to keep, wouldn't be able to put vinyl siding. There'll be a series of conditions that would be required.
Help preserve the historic.
This is significantly less than what the town paid for the house, and I think what we were hoping to get, and I think we might have jinxed ourselves with the discussion at the last meeting with the minimum bids. But can we not get more information about what they want to do with this house? Is that something we can ask for, given that
We
the
certainly can, and they can come up and talk to you tonight if you want to hear it.
or something even, I mean, how long is the bid open for? I mean, could we get
10
something, 10 days?
If you
Right now.
If you receive the bid today, we're going to start the clock with a 10-day upset bid period.
If we don't receive the bid, how long do we have?
As long as you want. I mean, until you get a bid that you're of the mind to receive.
Well, because I'd like to be able to know a little bit more what's going on, and I don't know, just a quick conversation.
I think I know the answer to the question, but I think you should say your plans for, I think was to live in it at some point in time?
So we've definitely done
And
our
please, I'm
research.
sorry, give your name and address for me, please.
Yeah, I'm Nicole Reed. That's my husband, Corey
Hey.
Reed. We've done our homework on this home. We want to restore it, but to say preserve it is hard because when we went inside of it, it's not been taken care of. It's not been, kept. It doesn't have any of the, fixtures you would like to see in a home that old. It doesn't have lighting, the old lighting or, any fixtures. It's all been, like I would say, like linoleum flooring, holes in the floor, holes in the ceiling. It's not livable right now, obviously, but we want to restore it back to, we want to put our pride behind it and really make it, beautiful again. That's what our goal is. So.
Ms. Reed, have
And,
you ever?
We've looked into like clawfoot tubs and like antique appliances and like, we want something like out of Better Homes and Gardens, basically, so.
Have you done a project like this before?
Yes, we're very handy. My husband's extremely handy. He's very good with plumbing, very good with, electrical work and all that. Of course, we'd have to hire like a mason to do like the on both sides of the house, the fireplaces are, it's in really, really bad shape. It's in very bad shape. So we're gonna have to obviously outsource some things that we're not, capable of doing.
You're planning to
And
live
we've also
in
looked
there.
into all the bylaws, and we've looked into things that we are and are not allowed to do. We realize that we cannot do anything, to the outside as far as like, we want to maintain exactly what it looks like, other than maybe fix the porch, restore the porch back to the way it was, and the inside, it's pretty run down right now, but we're not going to ever tear down any walls or do anything to disrupt the structure of what it is. And also, you were talking about the resale. We have no intentions of reselling, but we did look into it, and I think it said you have to at least live in the home for 5 years. By the time we put 5 years into this home, we're not going to want to give it up, I can guarantee you that. It's also been, the front yard, there is no front yard, so it's been a subdivision, I guess, has bought all the land around it, and it's not, it's not, in its original glory of what it could have been, so.
May I ask where you live now?
Yes, we live in Holly Springs. We live in Somerset Farms on Antique Lace Way. We love our home, we love our community. We lived in Holly Springs for 10 years, but we're outgrowing our home. It's, you know, a little bit small for us now. We have 3 kids, 4 on the way. So, you know, this would be a 4-bedroom home, which also is hard to find in Holly Springs, you know, like the real estate is really hard. We realize that it is, you know, like the bid is very low, but if you would go inside this home and look at it, the money that is it's gonna take to restore it is gonna be very substantial, you know.
I think we've all visited.
We've all been-
At least
yeah.
once.
Yeah,
That's fine,
yeah.
You understand?
So it's, you know, it's gonna be a huge project, and we understand that, and we're up for the task. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we
Enough.
feel.
So John, there's specific guidelines that they have to follow after our transaction's complete, that they have to follow and maintain, correct?
Yes, sir.
Through capital area preservation, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be a restrictive covenant on the land in favor of capital area preservation.
Got it.
And it's not unusual to their MO. That's what they do. They'll enforce covenants, just like capital area preservation is their homeowners association.
Right.
Is that a condition of the sale, so that the sale is not complete until that document is finalized?
Yes, sir.
And Counselor, it's my understanding the town received the 10% deposit money for an amount that was greater than the actual formal bid that was received?
That's correct.
Do we have any understanding as to why that was, or if there was a previous bid indicated higher than the bid we received?
We talked verbally. I may have gotten the number wrong when I got the bid in writing. It was for $25,000. I thought it was for higher based on the deposit that was received, $3,050. So, but frankly, I in the verbal conversation with Mr. Reed, I could have heard wrong. You know, I thought it would be coming in at $30,500, but the written bid that we received was for $25,000.
Okay.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
You understand the significance of this house and how important it is to the history of our town. Can you share with me, have you had thoughts about letting historians come and see it, or anybody else visit down the road?
I have. We actually talked about that, having like schools and stuff come. I've did a lot of research on this house. I've looked at the decor of 1800 homes to make sure. We want to restore it back to like an 1800 type of home. But absolutely, we would be more than happy to have tours and stuff for sure.
I compliment you for just trying to put this back where it was, kind of.
Yeah,
in a way.
it's gonna be. I mean,
It's
it's gonna be a
big
lot
job.
of fun. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a lot of hard work, but we realize that.
Special house. Other questions?
Do you have any concerns about some of the restrictions that capital area preservation may be putting on there? Is there anything that you're thinking that might be?
No, we're fine with it. The exterior, if we can restore the fireplaces and get them back, the only thing we would like to do is restore the porch.
Yeah, I
Looking at
understand
the
that, yeah.
earlier pictures of the home, though, it did have a nicer porch on it.
Mhm.
So I don't think that they would have an issue with us restoring the porch back to that, doing nicer columns and everything. The interior, it's just,
Some work.
yeah, it's just we're just gonna have to rip up the subfloors and put new floors. I wish we could keep the regular floors, the beautiful pine floors that were there, but I think there's only maybe 2 rooms in the house that are gonna be, well, the upstairs. You know, if we can keep the floors, you know, anything we can keep. Also, you know, in my research, realized all the doors are about the only thing, doors and windows and the hardware on the doors are the only things that are still, you know, intact. And I think the fireplace, the mantles and stuff of that nature, of course, we would leave everything that's original, we're keeping, you know, and even with the windows, we're gonna try to restore them versus replace them, things like that.
I know a lot, when we've talked to developers before, when a house has not been restorable or it's been an old shed, they've saved some of the wood or a fixture, and they've used it as a display, or they've given it somewhere, had it cleaned up a little bit, so maybe with little pieces here and there, you'd be able to do something like that.
hoping we will find a gem in that mess, but as far as fixtures, I'm not seeing many
Nothing.
of the original, you know,
Right,
no
right.
original faucets, no original light fixtures, you know,
Right.
nothing like that. It's been,
Yeah.
you know, they don't even have tile. It's just like, you know, it just hasn't been well kept.
Have you had a chance to speak to Capital Area Preservation?
No, we're in the very early stages
Okay.
of this, but we're, of course, ready to whenever, you know.
My recommendation is probably to give them a call tomorrow and
Definitely.
see what you're kind of getting. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I just want to see before,
But
you
I-
know, what,
Yeah.
I mean,
before you
I've researched
dump all your money.
the bylaw. I've read over everything that says what we are and are not allowed to do. But yeah, to speak with somebody, you know, would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd be worried that something's not in the bylaws, that there is something else, another historic type of statute or
Yeah,
something like that.
absolutely. I know going upstairs, the stairs, you guys said you've all been in, the stairs are so steep. I didn't know if that was something that could be changed. Probably not. I don't know. Stuff like that, yeah, it'd be nice to know with them. It's just very steep. It's just like
Yeah.
you're kind of
Yeah,
almost
it
walking
is.
up a ladder.
Yeah.
I think
You
it
know?
really depends, because I know there's another house in Holly Springs where they were not allowed to, but.
And
it doesn't
again,
mean-
and that's okay, and we understand that, you know, we understand that and accept it.
So what if? Okay.
So if they haven't spoken to Capital Area Preservation, we just got this bid like 10 minutes ago.
Yesterday.
Well, the final
I got the
just got-
check yesterday and the paperwork today. There's the email.
Right. Do we have to accept the bid or tonight? We could give it a little bit more time so you have time and
That's
put
fine.
something together.
Absolutely.
I think given how much of a discount it is from what was, I think that would be a good next step. And then we could consider the bid after. I would feel more comfortable with that.
Gina, could you reach out to Capital Area and ask them to please return? They may. it
So
be busy.
we do have a draft set of documents. What we're not able to do is, you know, that every bidder that comes in, and, you know, I'd love to see the Reeds be the last bidder, but they may not be the last bidder. CAP wants the final bidder to put forth, to work with them on what a reasonable schedule would be, as Gina was talking, you know, with certain milestones. That may be different for different folks. You know, a very high capitalized historic preservation person might have a more aggressive time than some folks that want to do it on their own, you know, to keep it as a residential, as their residence, as the Reeds have said they are. So the you know, the problem is we don't want to engage Capital Area Preservation to put together a customized schedule for somebody who may not be the final bidder.
Right. I just think it would be, just in
But they
case
haven't
there's
even talked.
surprises or anything. I mean, I don't know if there are or not, but I would just like them to be able to talk to
And
the Reeds.
The other thing is we do have to pay CAP to go through that process too, so.
So if we put this out 10 days, correct?
Yes, sir.
That'll give them plenty of time to get the information necessary that you guys can move forward on this project.
Absolutely.
That should give plenty of time. That would be my recommendation. And then, because we're not approving the bid tonight, what we're
That's
doing-
correct.
we're-
We are.
we're-
If you
No,
do-
that's
No,
what's
we're
on,
not.
Yeah.
Accept the bid?
We're accepting
You're,
it. We're not
you're
approving it.
accepting it, you're receiving the bid, and then we'll come back after the bid period ends, and you'll have a final acceptance of the bid. Statute doesn't really let you just say, well, I don't really want to give you the bid. You know, so assuming there are no upsets, you have approved it subject to the deed restrictions. And we haven't 100% nailed down the deed restrictions because a lot of that's going to have to do with the timeline that works for all the parties. And, you know, the sort of the conditions. The conditions are out there in a very general format. But my thought was, let's identify the winning bidder through the 10-day, let the 10 days either expire or every time, if a new bidder comes in, if we publish this bid on Thursday and somebody else comes up with a $30,000 bid, we start another 10-day period. And, so that could go on for a period of time. And then once we have, and the Reeds can then up their bid if there were an upset bid. So that could go on for a period of time. And then once that is done, we're going to formulate the exact criteria that the deed restrictions would happen. Now, we might get 10 bidders, and 10 people are going to be approaching CAP with different schedules and criteria, and CAP's a busy organization. There's 2 guys that run pretty much the whole gambit in the county, so that's what I was trying to avoid, is sort of get to the point to where we identify who the winning bidder is, and then do the work. But it's at your discretion.
So legally, this is starting the process versus approving the bid per se?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yeah, if you make your motion tonight, you could be locked in. If there are no upset bids, you're locked into selling it at 25, subject to the restrictive covenants that are there in general terms, but not 100%.
If we don't receive the bid tonight, can we receive it at our next workshop?
If
Like
they want to
the-
give it, they could, the Reeds could decide not, I mean, if you reject, it's just like a regular real estate transaction. If you reject it today, it's, they would have the ability to retract the bid or, submit it again.
Other comments or questions?
I don't think it's a dollar amount, for the Reeds, what it's going to take for this project.
The
and there's
original
the
bid
unknown.
was at 60, and no one bidded on it for, was it 2 years? So it was dropped down to, because it was purchased in like 2017, is that correct, by you guys?
Sounds
Well, that, from my research, that was what I, so no one's bid on it for, 2 years, it's sat there, and so it was dropped down to 20. That's why we put in the offer of 25, and again, that gives us more money to restore the home, and that's the overall goal, is to really restore it.
It's been on the market 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only put it on the market.
Oh,
7 months.
okay.
And it's only gone on MLS the last couple
Okay,
weeks.
sorry, I thought I
Oh,
read
that's
it.
all right.
It was bought in 2017, that's what it said
Yeah, we
online.
just
You can't
held
believe
on to it for
everything
a
you
little
read
bit.
online.
Yeah.
Question, so if they find out through CAP that it's not in their benefit to do this project, and we accepted the bid for $3,000 was the deposit, do they get the money back?
That's been our practice. The statute's silent on it, but we have had bids. I advise you all not to make your money on just receiving bids. So we've done that with real estate transactions where people have backed out of a bid and we've returned the deposit. The statute's pretty silent. I think we make an argument we can keep it, but I think we've got better ways to earn a living.
I just want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, because
Believe me, when we first went in, I said, we need to retract our bid.
I know all the work, but there are guidelines that
No, we understand.
CAP that you can and can't do.
Absolutely.
And
We
you may-
also, we've read, within 6 months, this has to be done. Within so many months, this has to be done with capital area or capital preserve. There is a timeline, we understand. We want to get right on it. We want to start working on it right away.
Okay, I just.
We truly want to restore it back to
I'd
its
feel more
glory.
comfortable if you had a conversation with them to really define
Yeah.
what you're going to need and financially how that's going to impact you guys.
Absolutely.
Especially because we've had a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people say, once they realize the cost, it just wasn't, we've talked about 250,000, and then, all of a sudden CAP says, it'd probably end up being closer to 4, or getting a loan when you can't do this. So we just want to make sure that
No,
you.
we're willing to put in the money and the time. This is a
it's a
beautiful
project.
historic home.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest homes in Wake County. I mean,
Right.
it's something we want to show off. We want to have, schools want
Right.
to bring their kids in and show them one of the oldest homes. of our county, you know?
And that's why we're so passionate about it, and that's why we
Yeah.
bought it. is
I'm so
because-
grateful you guys saved it. It's, you know, again, it just needs so much work.
does.
It really needs some elbow grease, and it needs some tender loving care.
And that's why the importance to our county, that's why I wonder if capital area would, it'd be nice to have sooner conversations with them. to
Yes.
hear how that
And we're not modernizing it, we're keeping it
Right.
as is. Well, not as is, but.
As much as you can.
Right, right. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
One possible thought, you do have a meeting next week with the planning board.
Correct.
And you could call a special meeting if you wanted to provide this week an opportunity for the Reeds to contact CAP and just to get a little bit more information. And I'm not sure what the right term would be, but, you know, we could hold, essentially hold their offer, and then you can make a formal disposition on it next Tuesday night, since you will be meeting.
And that's why I was asking, so that
That's
it could be
20
next
27th?
Tuesday, we could at least see a
Tuesday.
little bit more in writing.
Yeah. That's fine.
I would probably recommend that. So you guys can get
that's fine.
all the
That's fine with us.
information necessary, and it's only a week
Yeah.
out.
That's fine,
so-
absolutely. Then we can get in touch with them, and then, yeah, I can know exactly what they, you know, want from us. I
Counselor,
think I
did you-
have a pretty good understanding of it, but again, I'd like to speak to them.
And if we can let the capital area know that they have a week, so that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm
Do
sure.
we need a motion?
You just make a motion to table it till the 27th.
27th. We have a closed session after that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
27th.
All right.
Somebody
The
want to make a
mayor can
motion?
call that a special meeting, or the council can do so tonight. I think it is the understanding that the desire would be to have the Reeds at that meeting.
Yes.
That would be my understanding.
27th at the Cultural Arts Center.
Okay.
Don't know a time yet. Won't be very, well, it starts
It's at 6:30, the meeting starts at 6:30.
6:30 or 7.
Yeah, I think
To 8?
that meeting will conclude roughly 7 o'clock.
What time does it start?
I started at 6:30.
Sorry,
It starts at 6.
So 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
I was like, wow,
Too
good.
many different times.
We
And-
could have the town council meeting start at 6:15 and have 15 minutes for the council meeting prior to
Okay.
the planning board meeting. Because this way we have a definitive time as opposed to
Yeah.
scheduling a meeting at 8 o'clock. We may be discussing until 9, we may be done at 7:30.
Yeah. Gina, I like that idea.
I'd almost say 6 o'clock.
6
We need a
o'clock's
little-
fine with
Yeah,
you, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
We're gonna need more than, possibly more than 15 minutes.
We like 6 o'clock, Gina,
Okay.
if that's possible.
Is that-
We just make a motion.
Okay?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to delay the decision to accept the bid to move to August 27th meeting for the Needham Norris Hair House bid.
Okay. Here a second?
Second?
Here a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, we're going to be a week out.
Tuesday.
Thank
But
you very much.
Thank you for your
Yes.
proposed efforts. Let's put it that way. All right, item 10A, Cross Connections Ordinance Update. Paul Allen, all right. Wayne Wilhelm is here to assist, and somebody named John Schifano, too. Go ahead, Paul.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. So tonight, I bring before you the Cross Connections Ordinance Update. So the purpose of this presentation then is to provide you some information and background about the town's current Cross Connections Ordinate and to request approval of the proposed Cross Connections Ordinate update or the amendments therein. So our requested action then at the end would be the motion to approve proposed amendments to Chapter 16, Article 2, Division 4 of the Cross Connections Ordinance. So few definitions that I feel like we should go over before, just in case you're not really familiar with what a cross connection is or what the Cross Connections Ordinance does, is that a cross connection in general terms is any unprotected actual or potential connection or structural arrangement between a public or a consumer's water system and any other system through which it is possible to introduce a contaminant or a pollution or otherwise other than the potable water through the system in which it's supposed to supply. A backflow device is a device which uses a system of check valves to prevent that water and potential contaminants from flowing backwards, which could find its way into the town's drinking water supply. A double check valve and a reduced pressure zone valve, which Wayne Wilhelm here will go over with you soon. The double check valve, or DC valve as it's called, is an assembly composed of 2 independent acting check valves, and reduced pressure zone valve is an assembly composed of 3 independent acting check valves. So why is this ordinance important? Like, why are we bringing this before you tonight? So this ordinance and the program associated with it, they're required by state. This ordinance will bring, or this update will bring the ordinance into conformity with what are already existing town standards for code and engineering, and it's a glimpse into how Public Works actually works and operates as far as the cross connections ordinances is how it's used. It helps prevent the potential contamination of the town's water supply, like I just mentioned with cross connections. And then also, too, the scenario of what if a cross connection occurs? If a cross connection occurred, it could result in the contamination of the town's potable water system and could require a boil water notice to be enacted. So with that, I'll turn it over for a moment to Wayne. He can go over the different types of check valves and systems.
This is Wayne Wilhelm, Public Works. He's been here for a while.
For a while, yes, sir.
You're the
Good
expert.
evening. So on the page, we have what is called a double check valve assembly. And as in the statement, there are 2 check valves, one here and one here, that make this device work. So as water's flowing from left to right, following the arrows, when the water comes through, it opens up this check valve, it opens up this check valve, and goes downstream to the irrigation system, the fire suppression system, whatever's on the other end. When the valve is closed, if we have a back siphonage, if we have back pressure, if we have any type of water coming backwards, these 2 valves close and prevent the water from coming backwards back into our water system. So that is how the double check works. I want to make sure I didn't push the wrong button. So the diagram of a reduced pressure zone valve, the RPZ, which the one we require and the one we request to be used on all of our applications, works similar the same, but there's an extra check valve in this device. So when the water goes through again from left to right, this check valve opens, and then the water actually closes this relief valve on the bottom. Then it goes through the second check. If for some reason, again, if we have the backwards flow of water due to back pressure, back siphonage, these valves close again, just like in the double check valve. But in this case, if these 2 valves were to fail, the water comes out the bottom. On the other valve, we can go back real quick. If these 2 check valves fail, water can come back into our system. And we would never know that because it's enclosed, we wouldn't see that. But again, with this valve, if for some reason these 2 check valves fail, one of these 2 fail, water comes out the bottom and it's dissipated out of the bottom of the valve, and there's very little chance of any contaminated water getting back into our water system. Any questions about those 2 valves?
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne. So the purpose of the cross connections ordinance then is that, like he was talking about, it protects the town's potable water system by requiring these devices, which prevents the backflow of water from private sources or private sites, whether it be residential or commercial, from finding its way back into the public water system. And it thereby prevents an illegal cross connection, which in this case would be an unprotected tap into the town's water system from that private source into the town source. So this ordinance then requires monitoring, periodic inspection, and testing of the protection devices, and provides enforcement in the form of fines and the ability of the town to discontinue service in the event of a violation and/or non-compliance. So the proposed changes that we're bringing before you tonight in a summary are that the use of a double check valve is no longer permitted, and that we're having the RPZ be required. In the case of fire suppression systems specifically, is that those older devices have kind of a grandfathered in until after, however, after a non-conforming assembly is checked every 6 months. And so once it fails a check, or once it has something else go wrong with it, or there's we'll go to the next slide that will get more into that, then they're required to transition over to an RPC. So the town also now uses a third-party contractor for record management and tracking compliance with those testing obligations. Inspections are now required annually instead of every 2 years. We remove references to non-approved protection devices, and we made changes to the reference to the proper North Carolina agency. So one thing that might be different from the town council packet that you got a while ago versus the one that we wanted to actually read. This is taken directly from section 16-155, and I'll just read the highlighted portion on the bottom. Is that the structure is sold, remodeled, or improved, or improvements to the property exceeding the sum of $2,500 are made, or a new occupancy permit is otherwise required for the property. All that short little statement is doing then is that's actually just bringing in conformity with what is already an existing town code and engineering standard in which Public Works is already employing. So that's more of just a lining up of between the ordinance and the standards of which we're already applying.
So this new line was only under the fire protection systems, but there's a whole list of things. So are you saying that this line really exists for everything else?
This line, it's only in reference to the fire protection systems. Only in reference to section 16-155, specific to fire protection systems. And to that extent, Councilwoman Kelly, is that anything that has a fire protection system, it's not going to be residential. It's going to be something more of a commercial venture. So it's not going to be something that's going to have that kind of impact. So yeah. And
Justification on the 2-year versus 1 year, it hit me. Wayne, could you tell us why we want to do that?
Say what?
2 years, every 2 year, I mean, every year inspection instead of every 2 years.
Yes.
And
So-
why would that be?
One more time.
Why?
That is the recommendation from the assembly makers. That is the recommendation from the USC Foundation for Hydraulic Control, that they recommend yearly testing on all of these devices.
Okay.
And when we looked around, all the other backflow programs around the area or 1 year test as well, annual test as well.
Do you know if the other towns are doing this, any of the other towns, or have they done it already?
Backflow programs? Backflow programs?
Well, this program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All the surrounding towns.
Really?
Any water system that has more than 5 testable devices in their water system have to have a cross-connection program.
Okay.
Wayne, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How many residents would be part of, I mean, is this common for residents to also have these valves that could be non-compliant? Or is it mostly commercial businesses?
Every irrigation system is required to have a backflow preventer.
Because, okay.
But now this page here is specifically dealing with fire line.
Right.
This change here is dealing with the fire line suppression systems that have the double checks on them.
So currently today, it does not change that if a resident had the wrong type of valve, that they are subject to the fines that are already listed here. So none of that is new. Is that correct?
When we come across someone that is out of compliance with our ordinance, we do work with them, but that device has to be changed over to the correct one. But we work with them, give them opportunity to get that changed, and so it's not like we find it and say, hey, tomorrow it's got to be changed, or we cut your water off and fine. We have this process we go through.
Okay, because I was reading the civil penalties and recognizing that some of our residents might be getting hit with some of these penalties.
Silly question, who pays for it and how much is it again?
Say one more time.
Who pays for it?
Who pays for?
The inspection?
The inspection?
Well, no, the inspection, I know, but the device itself.
The device itself is the owner of the property owner. The homeowner owns the device. The device may cost $150 maybe for a backflow device.
Really?
It depends on, they have different models. I would say between 150 and 200 maybe for a device.
Would be terribly popular.
How many residences have been fined using these penalties to date? Do you know? Is that a common thing or not a common?
I don't
Zero.
think.
We haven't fined any.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any.
Okay, so you try to work with the
them,
residents.
But the remedy, the true stick, if you would be the disconnection of the water service for the irrigation. So we would lock the meter, frankly, before we would fine it. The fines would come in on the larger user that doesn't, refuses a test, the test criteria. So the fire suppression system in a commercial building, we're not going to threaten discontinuation of the water because that defeats the purpose of a fire suppression system. So we have yet to have to institute a fine, but that's where we would place the fine if we had to.
Other questions or comments?
Do we know how many residents would be potentially impacted because they've got to pay for the backflow test, which is about $50 to $100, right? And then potentially for this device, do you have an idea roughly we looking at?
Anyone impacted by what we're changing here?
So we have required RPZ for irrigation for the past
10 years or more.
So there may be a few older than 10 years devices out there that are somehow passing the every 2-year test that are double check flow, but we haven't really, no, I'm speaking for you, Wayne. I don't know if you've come across any of the older, I know we had one and one.
There's very few. We run across them every now and then, and again, we work with the resident
Okay.
to get those correct.
Anything else? No? Done?
Nope.
Paul, what else?
That, we
That's
just
it.
have your suggested motion.
Okay, someone want to tackle it?
Motion to approve ordinance 1908, approving amendments to the cross connections ordinance under chapter 16, article 2, division 4.
Second. Motion been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Wayne. Item 10B, Sunset Lake Road Sidewalk, PH 216-017. Mary DePina, I think I did see, yes, I did. Mary DePina from Engineering.
Mayor and Council. So, the Town of Holly Springs is proposing a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the north side of Sunset Lake Road. This section of, well, let's see here. So, right now, this is the Westcott subdivision at the top right, and they have a sidewalk adjacent to their property that ends. And then on the other side of Optimus Farm, the sidewalk picks up and goes all the way down to Holly Springs Road. So this is the only missing gap between here and Holly Springs Road as far as sidewalk is concerned. And so it's a much desired connection. And so this is the magenta line is the proposed sidewalk, and we'll install a concrete refuge island and update the signal to have pedestrian signals across Optimus Farm Road and crosswalks, which would be a good, good addition. So we're, bringing motion to approve the project budget and the budget amendment to transfer the money. These are the requested actions from the street reserves to the project account, and motion to award the following contracts, which is the signal upgrade contract with T&H Electrical for $18,105, and the construction survey contract to Malden Watkins. And we'll request a motion to approve the cost of the materials for Public Works to perform all the concrete work, which is $57,443.
Mary, I have a question.
Yes.
The right-of-way on those, is it 3 properties that we're touching? are you on the, or is that all in the right-of-way the town already has?
We have acquired some temporary easements on a couple of those already, and over here in the corner next to Optimus Farm Road, we have acquired a permanent drainage easement here. So there was just a small amount of easements that have already been acquired. And it's just so that the workers can get behind the sidewalk to work behind the sidewalk. So
we
the
have what we
majority of
need
it's
already.
temporary, and then right here around the drainage structure, it's permanent, so that we can maintain that.
So there's no taking of land that we have to do?
We've
Okay.
already acquired it.
We acquired it all, okay.
Mary, what's the savings, the fact that we brought it in-house? Just a rough idea.
Because we did it in-house, I don't really have another estimate to go by, but roughly, we've been coming in like 20 to 30% less than a contractor doing work.
Okay.
Savings.
Is this a regular sidewalk or just like asphalt, like across from, on Avon Ferry, across from the fire station?
It'll be a regular concrete 5-foot width sidewalk.
Okay.
What's the time frame for this project?
Public Works is ready to start ordering materials and getting their people in gear. And we'll know an exact date. We've got provided that you approve the motions, and we've got a pre-construction meeting set up for next Tuesday, and we'll know an exact start date then.
So months or years?
The
or-
contract time is 120 days, which is about 4 months, and signal components have been a little long on delivery,
Okay.
so we're allowing them a little bit of time. I don't anticipate the actual work taking anywhere near that time, but they do have 120 days to complete.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Just a comment, the rezoning we entertained earlier, the applicant has an interest, an ownership interest in this property, so they did not, we heard them say during the rezoning case that they're not going to submit a development plan anytime soon. If they did, or whenever they did, they'd likely be required to build that sidewalk at their expense. So doing this now, there's a cost to the taxpayers, but it also provides, a great connection that's lacking in this area. So the comment I wanted to make is, sometimes development pays for itself, sometimes it doesn't, but here's an instance where if we approve this, we'll basically be doing an improvement this developer would otherwise be required to do. I think it's a worthwhile investment at a modest cost. And, with staff helping out in Public Works to do the work, I think it saves us some money, provides the connection, and is probably going to be a good thing for a lot of the residents that live out there.
That's why I asked what kind of sidewalk.
Comment? No? No other comments?
So I'm digesting what you just all said, Dan. That we're paying money where a developer might be doing this in a near future timeframe.
Maybe. They didn't have
Yeah.
any indication of when and that parcel is just to the, I guess on that drawing, it would have been the northwest to the left of the screen is where the parcel was that we rezoned. So if they incorporated all this property, they'd have to come across the street. So who knows what they might do on the sliver that's over here, but the sidewalk's already on the property that we rezoned, it looks like. It's just this piece that, a similar interest holds that they may, if they do ever decide to do a development project, they may have to build that.
Agree, but we really don't know when.
That's where, yeah.
I know, I'm just saying there's a cost, right? I mean, there's something to be said for waiting for development to pick up the tab, or something to be said for a modest investment that we could come along and do this, provide the connection now, but if and when they ever decide to develop, that's money we're not going to get back.
With all of the new development that we've approved with the new restaurants and stuff, I could see actually people wanting to be traveling along that way,
Sure.
which wasn't like 2 years ago.
So what's the feeling? Should you not delay it? Should you delay it? Help me with that.
I'm good.
I'm fine
I'm
with it.
good.
I'm fine, I mean, I understand, it. I mean, he makes a great point that, you know,
Okay.
It's just an example of us trying to stay ahead of development, right? I mean, there's a lot of residents in Sunset Oaks and Westcott that would probably be able to walk using the existing sidewalk, but they have this, I don't even know if it's a half mile, less than a half mile, quarter mile stretch that they can't get to. So we put this through. Now there's a lot more connectivity. There's commercial going up. You have the wine place, Planet Fitness. There's all that stuff that's right over there. So I think it's a good connection and shows that we're making some interconnectivity in places where development hasn't done it for us. It just does come at a cost.
Yep.
That's the only thing I was trying to say.
All right.
Well, and even short-term, the safety of that intersection will be greatly improved, which is a concern right now for folks.
All right.
All right.
You want to go to a motion? There it is. We need 3 on this one.
Motion to
Or
approve,
Yeah.
motion to approve the following 4 actions. A, approve a budget amendment to transfer $84,628 from street reserves to project account 48-609-91.04. B, approve the project budget of $84,628. C, award the signal upgrade contract to T&H Electrical. And D, award the construction survey contract to Maudlin Watkins.
second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Mary. Okay, agenda item 10C, new business, 55 bypass right turn lane, 19-005-2019 transportation bond project, green project. Tim Athey? Hi, Tim. Engineering Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Tim Athey. I'm the transportation engineer for the town of Holly Springs. I'd like to present to you tonight the NC 55 bypass right turn lane project. That is a bond project. The purpose of this presentation is to introduce the selected engineering consultant for the NC 55 bypass right turn lane bond project, and that's one of our green projects. Requested action, there are 2. First is a motion to approve the design budget for the NC 55 bypass right turn lane bond project and move $220,000 from prior council approved interfund loan to the project account 48.612.12.01. The second motion is to approve the design consultant contract for Summit Design and Engineering Services. So here's our familiar transportation bond map, and the NC 55 bypass right turn lane would be this project here, this little green strip. Looking at our bird's eye view, this again is one of the 6 green bond projects. It is the southbound lane that will be affected. We will add a right turn lane all the way from Avon Ferry to Main Street on NC 55 bypass. The purpose is to relieve traffic congestion on southbound NC 55 bypass, especially during the afternoon rush hour. A consultant selection was held, and Summit Design and Engineering Services was deemed the most qualified firm. And upon their selection, we held a public outreach meeting for this project, and that was held July 16th of this year. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of the Summit team. Eric Caravari, he is the team leader, and with him is Brandon Johnson. Brandon is Eric's right-hand man, Brandon is Eric's right-hand man. I think what that actually means is he does most of the work. So, so what is Summit's scope? What is the scope of this contract? First of all, they'll do the topo survey. They'll do the project design. They'll put together the right-of-way plats. They'll do coordination, and they'll put together meetings. They'll put together all the environmental documents. They'll conduct geotechnical assessments. They'll do all coordination with the NCDOT, and they'll put together the construction bid package. Project schedule is like this, looks like this. Fall of 2019, Summit will begin the survey Once they receive that survey, they can begin design. The spring of 2020, we will begin the right-of-way acquisition, and that generally happens at the 65% plan completion. What that means is Summit's plans will be approximately 65% complete. At that point, we'll come to the town council once more and ask for approval to acquire the right-of-way. The summer of 2020, we would have selected a contractor for construction, and we'll once again come to town council for contractor approval. And we anticipate in the spring of 2021 the project completion. In terms of money, the consultant contract, Summit Design contract, which is the design services and survey that we're presenting to you tonight, is $220,000. Approximately $199,000 of that will be Summit's fee, and we have added an additional $21,000 plus in contingency cost.
Tim, can you, I know as part of the Transportation Bond Committee that there were some benefits of why we wanted to do this in terms of savings of traffic. Kendra, do you recall some of those savings that we're saying doing this piece will save this much time commuting? It'd be great to hear the benefits again of why we picked one of this as one of the green projects.
I think Tim probably knows this, but you called on me, so I'll share that during the bond campaign, we ran models, and this right turn lane cut the delay in half for that segment, which was a great benefit. When you look at such a short section of road and what a great benefit it would have, that was one of the reasons that it rose to the top of the priorities, as well as the bypass will be eventually 3 lanes southbound and 3 lanes northbound, and this starts to build that ultimate 3rd lane as well. But and predominantly for a lot of the Holly Springs residents that turn off onto South Main Street, this enables them to get home a little bit faster and gain back time in their life.
So this will benefit the residents more than the commuters. Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Explain that again. I mean, who's it going to benefit? People
Every-
coming in what direction?
Southbound into Acton. So,
Okay.
you know, it's not necessarily going to, indirectly it'll help the commuters one different way, but predominantly it's the folks that'll be turning off
Right.
onto Avon Ferry and onto South Main Street. It lets them go ahead and get
Keep
over
going.
into our right turn lane and out of
Back.
the lane in front of them, go ahead and turn right.
I travel that every day. I'm trying to think where it really is.
I can imagine it would really relieve the back traffic.
That's the-
It
yeah.
goes- I mean, I do this every day,
Mhm,
so
too.
I'm backed up quite a bit. And my only other question that you guys answered, but I think it's worth mentioning, is there's construction already around the Ting area, and then this will have construction and get through one construction, and then they're going to hit another one, and they're not going to happen at the same time.
We don't foresee those two projects conflicting.
What about Avon Ferry, the widening of Avon Ferry? You know, will that be around happening? same time?
So Avon Ferry Road widening, we're looking to advertise that project this fall, to start probably in the spring. So there might be some
A little bit of
overlap
overlap, okay.
in these projects.
Okay.
Tim,
Any
can you just,
questions? Yeah, go ahead.
can you go back to that one, the diagram? You just talked to me about the flow. So if I'm coming out Avon Ferry and I make a right, today it's like an existing right turn only. So if I come out there with this new turn lane and I make the right, am I in the dedicated turn lane at that point? And say I want to go to Main Street, I've got to go over 2 lanes to get to the turn lane on the left farther down. Is that sort of how it would work?
I'm not sure, I'm not sure that, and Eric and Brandon, you can help me out. I'm not sure that there's going to be any sort of striping or anything that will direct you which lane to turn into. I mean, as far as I know, the law is you have to turn into the first available lane. But gentlemen, are there any plans on forcing traffic, making this right turn into a specific lane? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I'm just trying to visualize what that's gonna be coming off there.
Yeah. As far as coming in and coming, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's signalized, so most of the people are stopped. When the right is going, there isn't usually, unless they're going on, right on red, but.
And this is a contract for design.
Yeah.
We typically come back to town council with 25% design where you can start to see
Okay.
more of the actual design, so that's
Okay.
not-
Okay,
Okay.
Good point. What else? Do good? Okay. Tackle, got two motions.
Motion to approve the attached design budget for the NC 55 bypass right turn lane green bond project and move $220,000 from prior council-approved interfund loan to the project account 48.612.12.01.
Second.
Motion been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number two.
Motion to approve contract to Summit Design and Engineering Services in the amount of $220,000, 198,606.52 contract amount plus 21,393.48, 10% project contingency.
Second.
Motion been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Agenda item 10D, System Development Fee Report 2019 Update. Kendra Parrish, Director of Engineering.
Good evening. So, as you may recall, we had House Bill 436 that was passed, and with House Bill 436, all municipalities had to go through an engineering study to establish the system development fees. We went through this process in 2017 and established these fees. We've had this document over the last year, and in working with the document and it being a new legislation, we have found over the last year and a half that we would like to go ahead and update this document and add a few different items. We're reviewing the methodology, calculating the water and wastewater system development fees. And we're going to be looking at the updated planning documents, capital improvement plans, the land use assumptions, which have changed, and then looking at one of the biggest changes is looking at the evaluation of interim water and wastewater infrastructure. The initial plan had the larger capital projects, but looking at these funds that we're bringing in and how they are regulated and can be used, if it's not listed in this document, we cannot use that money for those projects. And so we want to go back and articulate and give flexibility with those interim projects, as well as if we have a development that will come in and oversize the infrastructure, being able to have the flexibility to utilize those funds for that as well. Construction costs have also escalated, and having go ahead and checking in with these capital improvement projects and adjusting them with the large amount of inflation that we've seen over the last couple years as well. We do not anticipate the fee to go down because we are adding projects to it, so the numerator's getting larger, the denominator's staying the same. But that's something, obviously we'll want to be protecting the rates or the fees that we do have. We have Friesa Nichols did the report initially, and we have them updating the report. We have Charles Archer from Friesa Nichols is also here if you have any questions. And I can answer any questions, or we can move into the motions.
Questions or comments?
I just was wondering if we had an answer to the question about whether or not if this study results in a new fee based on redoing this, do we have to accept that fee, or can we revert to our old study? Say the fee goes down, right? Probably not going to go up, but if it comes back and it goes down, do we have to take the lower fee at that point?
That's a good question, because if the new analysis substantiates a lower fee, yes, you would be tied to that lower fee. If it substantiates a higher fee, you would not have to set your fee to that maximum. But this study creates a baseline, you know, once it's adopted, once the study's adopted and the public hearing, the 45-day public hearing notice is done, that creates sort of the baseline, so you wouldn't be able to go above the new fee.
Other questions? Hearing none. Two motions.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve a budget ordinance transferring $29,400 from Water and Sewer Capacity Replacement Fund 71.95 fees to the Utility Fund Operating Budget 3432 12.01.
Second.
What's been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number two.
Approve contract to Freeze and Nichols in the amount of $29,400.
Second.
What's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Kendra. Agenda item 10E, 2019 Water System Hydraulic Model Update, Town of Holly Springs, number 19-026. Dirk Stiebenbrood from Engineering.
Thank you. It's
Hi,
been a
Dirk.
while. My name is Dirk Siebenbrood. Good evening, Mayor Sears. Good evening, Town Council. Oh, let me click on this. See, it's been a while, so I don't even know what to click anymore. Just kidding. The purpose, tonight I would like to present to you the 2019 Water System Hydraulic Model Update that runs under the Town Project number 19-026. The purpose of that study is to receive information. Oh, no, sorry. The purpose of this presentation is to provide information about the update of the water system hydraulic model and to review the contract that we received from Hazen and Sawyer. And following that, the requested action would be to a motion to approve the budget amendment, transferring $77,484 from the water reserves account to the operating budget account, and another motion to approve the Hazen and Sawyer contract for this 2019 water system hydraulic model update. What is this update about? What does it do? So, in short, it is a recurring study that is performed by an outside consultant that specializes in this type of work, and that study updates our current water system that is simulated in a computer program called InfoWater. With this, I have a slide after this, and we can take a quick look at this model. This update would analyze the performance of each water tank in town, and also would look at all the water lines and hydrants that's been added in the last 4 years through the town's progress of growth, because it needs to be kept up to date. It also includes field testing that is used to just verify the computer program simulation. Once the study is completed, we could use the findings to identify and correct potential current or future system insufficiencies those findings can also be used to maintain, categorize, and test the current fire hydrant inventory via maps and inventory lists. And the findings are also helpful to support long-term planning. This is, I guess, what everybody was waiting for. It's a really great, well, this is the program that the consultant has available. So you can see all the town's water system is shown with lines. Hydrants are shown. These are the water tanks in town, and this system pretty much simulates the performance of the system. And we can ask them any questions. Let's say, what happens to this tank if we're using 10 hydrants at the same time? So like kind of like a stress test. So it's a very flexible model, and we stay in constant contact with the consultant and ask them what if, but they normally have their models in place that they run by us. I want to keep it short before we get into these two motions. Are there any questions from?
Questions or comments?
Yes.
Is this something that we're going to have to do every year, or is it every
No,
4
sir.
years?
Every 4 years, and I have to say that this time we added more features, so to speak, because I looked at the previous update number, and that number was below the number that we look at now, and one of that it was an addendum, but we don't need to task 1 and task 2. So this time around, we are asking much more, requesting much more information from the consultant. It is, just to give you comparison, last time, the last update, we paid about $20,000 for just a simple update. This time around, and it's been, in the contract, it's been listed as task 2. This time around, we have in this budget, in case there are some files that need to be converted from the consultant from our system that we use, AutoCAD files, into GIS files. That's been looked at. It's actually a built-in fee that we could use, but if we don't have to use it. We also look at the tanks themselves. We look at fire flow storage, emergency storage, daily use storage that we haven't done before. Like I mentioned, the stress test to see what would happen. And Kendra, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is like a one-time thing that we're gonna do. We're probably not gonna go into depth the next time around in 4 years like we've done this time. We also, prior to this, we have never really had a detailed location of our hydrants in the system. And this information will be included. So all the 2,100 hydrants will be actually listed, categorized, and pretty much shown where they are. So this is a great tool for our fire department, for public works department, to really go in and look at each hydrant and actually can know where they are. And we, again, the field investigations, that is also, I think there are like 4, 5, 6 investigations just to look at the real-time performance of the hydrants as they correspond to our model. So it is more than the last update, but I think it's a good investment.
Other questions or comments?
Dirk, having this model, you were saying we could monitor performance. So what is the win? Do we save money, or it's easier on equipment, or what are the things that, does it save time, money, people?
Well, I think the EPA has a model that allows us to view it. If I understand you correct, it's a model we could actually. I'm sorry,
I'm just asking the benefits to the town. Because we do this, we'll be able to either make equipment work better or save money because of less usage of water or, like, I'm just looking for the win for the town.
So,
Yes.
do you want me to jump
Yeah,
in?
if you'd like to.
Okay, so the win for the town is by having this model, as development is occurring around us, they have to size water lines. We throw it into this well, it's not as easy as throwing it, but it gets imported into the model. And we check on each development to make sure that they're putting adequate water lines and infrastructure to serve for fire flow. So it's a definitely needed model. We've had it for quite some time. It needs to be updated. It also helps us with long-range planning and capital infrastructure improvements. For years, we would have this model. It pops out needed infrastructure improvements. We put them on the capital improvement plan. We budget them out in future years. So it helps identify that as well. So there's short-term and long-term benefits to this model. And now with the added benefit of our ISO rating with the fire department, being able to have hydrant reports, that is something that's new, but helps also with our taxpayers.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Looking good?
Yep.
We got a couple motions. There's one.
Motion to transfer $77,484, including 10% contingency from Water Reserves Account 23.95 to operating budget account 30-432-12.01.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 2.
Motion to approve the Hayes and Sawyer contract for the 2019 water system hydraulic model update.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Dirk.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, item number 11, other business. I think all I want to do on tonight is just repeat the crosswalk safety that I say every time we have a meeting. And I think we've convinced the geese, and we've convinced the police, we've convinced a lot of our citizens, but not all. But we're still making good progress. Who else?
I have had folks ask me, and I'm going to ask this to you guys, because we talked about the bypass today, is folks are questioning whether it's a bypass anymore, and what will we do about that? Because is it a bypass?
So actually, okay. So there's paperwork in the works, and it'll be coming before council. Main Street. So 55. There's 55 Main Street, and there's 55 bypass. And DOT is changing the name of NC 55. It's just going to be Main Street, and then the bypass becomes 55. So there will be bypass will not be attached
Okay.
to that concept, which is it's not really a bypass. The average speed, it's
Right.
changed, and so but that's not why they're changing it. It's because there's parallel facilities and they're cleaning up the naming system. But
Okay.
bypass will be removed at some point in the future when the paperwork gets through DOT and then comes for town council for official use.
So you fixed it before I even asked you to do something about it. That's awesome.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to thank staff for helping the downtown residents and coordinating some meetings with them, and it's much appreciated for the parking and speeding issues that we're having in the old village, village district, but specifically around Raleigh Street, around Center Street. So I appreciate that, and they do too.
Other comments?
Just a couple. Kudos to the Holly Springs Run Club this past Saturday, and the volunteers. Myself and Councilman Berry ran the, how many miles was it?
3.1.
3.1?
Yeah.
Councilman Kelly
And
walked
I'm
it.
sorry, and Councilman Kelly had also partaked in that, but that was a great event. That really was.
Derek Davis.
Personal record, am I correct?
I cut my, down to under 50 minutes. So. A little run, little walk, and I was hurting the next day. And actually, that night before, I went and did a ride-along with our police department. And Friday night, you would expect some action. There was zero. We had zero
That's what happened with me.
calls on a Friday night, beautiful night. So kudos to Sergeant McLam, who I rode with, and his staff. They were fantastic. And again, this was the second time that I've done this, and this is the second time where I had almost, nothing in terms of activity, which is
Yeah.
You were on the car.
which is great, the fact that, we live in one of the safest towns in America. Yeah.
Councilman O'Brien, would you do that on New Year's Eve too then?
Sure. So also, Randy, I'd like to ask if maybe at our next workshop, I know we've had some emails in defining the holiday parade and the Citizens of the Year. So I wonder if we could work with getting it defined on policy and how we would handle those two things, especially with Joni not here anymore, and now that we have a new communication director, might be a great opportunity for her to partake in getting that straightened out. I think that's a good idea. That's all I have.
Okay. What else?
I guess just remember, school, traditional school starts next week
That's right.
on Monday, so please keep that in mind with your travels in the morning, the afternoons, and crosswalk safety and all that fun stuff. I think it was Tamara posted on the Holly Springs Government Facebook page and Twitter, some big events that are coming up that involve the schools and things that will impede traffic, so check that out.
We good? Okay, at this point in time, we go to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The first comment I'll make, I think tonight you heard from almost our entire engineering department.
It's true.
We had a lot of engineering-related items on there.
Well, they got 12 more down, no, no.
Yeah, I appreciate their work. 4 items for you tonight. First off, just a heads up, next Monday evening, there's a neighborhood meeting related to the landfill, particularly talking about some of the odor concerns that are out there in the community and some of the surrounding communities to the landfill. That's going to be next Monday night, the 26th. It's going to be in the Town Hall Council Chambers right here at 7 p.m., and there will be some, perhaps some of you and elected official Matt Calabria from the Wake County Commission will be here as well, along with the director who oversees the Wake County South Wake landfill.
Do we have to announce that in case we have a quorum?
We will announce that, yes. So that's the first item. The second item, just a reminder, there's a joint planning and town council meeting next Tuesday, August 27th. That's at 6:30 p.m. and an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the land use plan that you all are very familiar with and the community is as well, but a chance to have a joint dialogue and update on that particular plan. Third, next Thursday, August 29th, we have the State of the Town and State of the County address that's put on by the Holly Springs Chamber of Commerce. That's going to be at 8 a.m. at the Cultural Center. And myself and the County Manager, David Ellis, will be giving that presentation. I know we also have an event related to the Sharon Harris nuclear plant, as well as some of you will be attending. But at that same time, we'll be giving that presentation at the Cultural Center. And the final item that I have for you tonight, one of our colleagues was in Walmart tonight and found a Holly Springs-opoly game.
Yay! Who did that?
And so we are in the shelves of the stores. You can play games of Monopoly related to Holly Springs locales and locations. So very fun. Kendra Parrish found that.
Can't let Fuquay get any over us.
I know what Kendra will be playing tomorrow night.
Yeah.
How many did you buy,
For
Kendra?
the retreat now.
Just one? Buy more and sell them for double.
So that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. One thing, on the 27th, I think it was, we talked about having a closed session afterwards. I just want to remind everybody, we talked about that for personnel issue.
And a special meeting before.
Especially, in other words, it's going to be a long night.
It will be, it will be. Counselor?
Yes, sir.
session?
Mr. Mayor, the Economic Development Director and Manager would like to get some guidance from you on an economic development project. And I would like to get some guidance from you on a litigation matter involving Don Davis. So pursuant to NCGS 143.318.11A, subsection 3 and 4, we could make a motion to go into closed session for those, to discuss those two matters.
So moved, Counselor.
Okay, second?
Second?
Second.
Motion passes. We're on our way.